A hunting scope lost its zero riding in the seat of a truck. It was never dropped. It was never shot loose. It just rode to the range on a quiet morning, and somewhere along the way the crosshair walked off the target, the way that costs you the only shot you get. That scope sells for $500, and the $1,400 glass sitting 3 feet down the same shelf, the one with the German name that makes grown men whisper. Nobody has the faintest idea whether it does the same thing, because nobody ever bothered to test it. A rifle scope has exactly one job: not to zoom, not to glow, not to look serious on top of the rifle, to hold the line you gave it. So I ranked the 8 best-known hunting scopes of 2026 by that one job, who holds zero when the rifle gets knocked around, proven with real drop testing, then sorted by glass, weight, and price. We start at the bottom with the $500 scope that walked off zero in the truck. Number 8 is the most beloved scope in this whole group, and I sold more of it across the counter than anything else on this list. So hear me out on why it starts us at the bottom. The Leupold VX 3 HD 3.5 to 10 by 40. Let me give it its due first, because it earns it. It is the lightest thing here by a mile, right around 12.5 ounces. It is the cheapest, around $500. It rides on a 1-inch tube with a dead, simple second focal plane reticle, the kind of clean sight picture that gets faster and easier the older your eyes get. Thousands of hunters have run this scope and its ancestors for decades and will die swearing by it, and a great many of them will never, ever have a problem with it. If you hunt inside 300 yards, mount it once, and treat your rifle with reasonable care, it may serve you perfectly for the rest of your life. I mean all of that. But this list has exactly one ruler, holding zero when it gets knocked around, and I have to rank it by that ruler, or the whole thing is a lie. And on that one measurement, the VX3 HD is the only scope here with a documented independent failure. That truck seat I opened with was this scope. When the testers ran their protocol, it lost its zero after simply riding around in the cab before it ever got to the hard drops. That is the verified result. Not a rumor, not an owner report, a documented outcome. And here is the plain reason so many owners never see it. A scope that only slips under real abuse will look perfect to a careful hunter who babies his rifle inside 200 yards. It does not lie to you until the day you finally ask it to take a beating. So it starts us at number 8. And that does not mean it is a bad scope. It means that on the single thing this ranking measures, it is the one that has been shown, under testing, to move. For a light, cheap, close-range setup you protect, that risk may be perfectly acceptable to you. You just deserve to know you are accepting it, instead of finding out on the one morning it counts. That is the floor. It only climbs from here. Number 7 is going to make some people angry, and I understand why, because it is beautiful. The Swarovski Z5 3.5 to 18 by 44. The twilight glass on a Swarovski is genuinely elite. If you put your eye behind one at last light, you will understand why people spend the money. And it is featherlight, right around 16 ounces. So why is it down at 7? 3 reasons, and they all come back to the one shot in the fading light that this entire list is built around. First, it is built on a 1-inch tube, which limits how much elevation adjustment you have to work with compared to the 30mm scopes higher up. Second, and this one stuns me for the price, the Z5 does not have an illuminated reticle. Think about that. The most expensive glass on this list, built specifically to gather the last bit of light, and it cannot light up its own crosshair when the light is finally gone. And third, I could not find a single independent drop test on it. None. So you are paying around $1,400 for spectacular glass, a limited adjustment range, no illuminated reticle in exactly the moment you would want one, and zero verified durability data. That $1,400 glass from the cold open, this is it. The glass is real. Everything around the glass is a compromise the price tag does not warn you about. Number 6 is the Vortex Razor HD LHT 3 to 15 by 42. This is the lightweight premium play, right around 19 ounces, with genuinely good glass for the weight. And Vortex has a loyal following that will tell you it punches above its price. And it might. But we run the same test here that we ran on everything else, and the same problem shows up. The version of the LHT that the independent testers dropped was the 4.5 to 22 by 50 version, and it failed badly, shifting well off zero from the impacts. The 3 to 15 by 42 that I'm ranking was not tested. Same family, different scope, and I will not do the dishonest thing and pin the failure of one on the other. What I will tell you is that you are paying a premium price. The manufacturer number is close to $1,900, though the street price is more like $1,300 for durability that, on this specific model, nobody has verified, while its own tested sibling struggled. Reviewers also commonly gripe that the magnification ring is stiff, but that is a comfort complaint, an opinion, not a zero retention problem. For the record, it runs a second focal plane reticle with a button-lit center dot, a forgiving 4 inches of eye relief, and an elevation turret with a zero stop, so the hardware is there. Good glass, low weight, real question mark on the proof, premium money. Number 5 is where the glass gets genuinely beautiful and the story gets complicated. The Zeiss Conquest 5.4 3 to 12 by 56. That 56mm objective is a light-sucking machine, built for exactly the last few minutes of legal shooting light when everything cheaper has already washed out to gray. Zeiss claims 90% to the eye light transmission on this glass. Careful, that is Zeiss's own number, not an independent lab result I can hand you. But Zeiss's reputation for contrast and color separation in low light is about as good as it gets, and I will give them that. It also gives you the illuminated reticle that the Swarovski we just passed does not, a lit center that stays visible when the woods go gray. So why is the best low light glass on the list only sitting at number 5? Because of durability, and this is where you need me to be precise instead of lazy. The independent testers did run a drop test on a Conquest V4, but it was the 4 to 16 by 44 version, and that scope came back rated as not robust for holding 0. Now, that is not the same scope I am ranking. The 3 to 12 by 56 that I am talking about was not itself tested. So I am not going to tell you the 56mm version fails because nobody dropped that exact one. But I am also not going to tell you it is bulletproof because the closest relative anyone did test did not do well. The glass buys it a spot in the top 5. The unverified durability, sitting right next to a tested sibling that struggled, is exactly why it cannot climb any higher. And on price, it is often the value story of the group, frequently selling in the $600 to $800 range on the street, which for German glass this good is a lot of scope for the money. Number 4 is the Leupold Vortex 5 HD, the second generation, 3 to 15 by 44. On paper, this is a lovely scope, and I mean that. It weighs under 20 ounces, so it is a serious weight savings over the 2 proven tanks waiting at the top. It has Leupold's locking turret system, where the elevation dial physically locks, so you cannot bump it off 0 in the field, which is a smart, real-world feature. And Leupold markets it as having best-in-class light transmission. I want to be careful with that phrase. That is Leupold's claim, their words on their marketing, not an independent measurement I can verify for you. So take it as the manufacturer talking. Here is why it sits at 4 and not higher. I could not find an independent drop test on this scope. Nobody ran the formal protocol on it that I could point you to, so the one number that decides this list, this scope simply does not have. And there are scattered owner reports out there of the 0 wandering on it, a couple of minutes of angle drifting over time. I want to label that clearly. Those are owner reports, community claims, not verified testing, and I cannot confirm them. But the absence of a real drop test cuts both ways. I cannot tell you it fails, and I cannot tell you it holds, because as far as I can find, nobody has properly checked. On paper, it is excellent. On the one thing this list is built on, it is a question mark, and I am not going to paint a question mark as a guarantee. Now stop and notice what just happened, because we have climbed past 4 scopes, and the ranking has been quietly breaking every rule you were taught. Look at what did not move a single one of them up this list. Not the badge, not the price, and we just walked right past some of the most expensive glass in the room. Not how pretty it looks on the shelf. Every one of those 4 had something gorgeous to sell, and not one of them earned its spot with proof. And here is the thing nobody at the counter says out loud. The one measurement that decides everything from here to the top is the one the industry does not want to be judged on because it is expensive to prove and easy to hide. Glass sells itself in a bright showroom. A magnification number sells itself on a sticker. A drop test does not sell anything. It just tells you whether the thing really works, and sometimes the answer is embarrassing for a name you paid a lot of money to trust. Beautiful glass and holding zero are two completely different things, priced on two completely different shelves, and nobody is going to volunteer where they split. If this is the kind of straight answer you want before you spend real money on gear, subscribe, because this is the whole reason this channel exists. Everything below this line was riding on faith. The last three scopes are the only ones that earned it with hard data, and by the time we reach number 1, you will know exactly which one to buy at your budget. Number 3 is the one most people have never heard of, and that is exactly why it is this high. The Maven RS 1.2, 2.5 to 15 by 44. When the independent testers ran it through their formal drop protocol, it passed. It held zero through the drops with only a small opening up of the group, and it rode thousands of miles bouncing around in the bed of a truck without padding and kept working. It is a first focal plane scope with an etched glass reticle. The elevation turret has a true zero stop, and the windage is capped, so once it is set, it stays set, and it sells direct from the company for around $1,200. That is proven durability, at a first focal plane price point, from a company charging you less because you are not paying for a middleman. The catch here, and there is one, is that Maven sells direct. You will not find it on the wall at the big box store, and there is no counter to walk up to and hand it back across if something goes wrong. You order it, you trust the brand, and you deal with them directly. For some people that is a deal breaker, and I respect that. But if you can get past the name you do not recognize and the direct sales model, you are getting tested, verified zero retention for less money than either scope ranked ahead of it. That is the definition of an underrated find, and it is why it beats the pretty unproven glass we just climbed through. Number 2 is the Trijicon Credo HX 2.5 to 15 by 42, and this one carries the single most convincing durability record on the list. When the independent testers ran their full formal protocol on it, the drops plus a long drive around test, where the scope rides in a vehicle over rough ground for miles, this scope passed. Not just past the drops, it went past 3,500 rounds without a major failure. And in that same pooled statistical study I mentioned, Trijicon as a brand came out beating the market average for holding zero with something like 99.9% confidence. Of everything I looked at, that is the strongest durability signal there is. The testers did note that the point of impact nudged a little on the very hardest drops, but the center of the group came right back where it started, which is exactly the behavior you want, the group breathing a hair and then settling instead of walking off and never returning. The elevation turret returns to zero so you can dial up for a longer poke and spin it back to your baseline by feel. I owe you one honest footnote, because the record was not spotless on the first try. The first sample the testers used showed a shift, but they traced it to the scope sliding in the rings, not the scope itself failing, and the second sample went the distance clean. I am telling you that because I would rather you hear it from me than find it in a forum and think I hid it. The Credo runs on a 30mm tube with a second focal plane reticle that stays a bold, easy-to-see size, no matter where you set the magnification, and that is a real advantage at dawn and dusk when a thin crosshair just vanishes into the brush. The center dot lights up when you want it, the eye relief runs a generous 3.5 inches or so, and the field of view is wide at the bottom of the zoom range, which is what you want for picking up a moving animal fast in thick timber. Where it gives a little ground is the glass. It is very good, but it is not the absolute best on this list, because Trijicon builds its scopes to lean toward contrast, making targets pop out of shadow, rather than toward raw brightness. It weighs around 25 ounces. Depending on the exact model and reticle, you're looking at somewhere between about $1,100 and $1,600. For take it to hell and back durability with a reticle that does not disappear on you, this is as safe a bet as exists, and only one scope beats it. And that brings us to number 1 for 2026, the NightForce SHV 4 to 14 by 50. It earns the top spot for a reason that has nothing to do with looking impressive. It holds 0. When a shooter ran it through that same brutal, repeatable drop protocol, mount it, shoot a group, drop it from a set height onto hard ground, shoot again, and see if the group moved. This scope stayed put. And it is not a fluke of one sample. That pooled study that ran the numbers across dozens of drop scopes put NightForce as a brand at the very front of the pack, beating the market average with something like 91% confidence. That is not my opinion. That is a lot of dropped scopes averaged out, and this brand sits at the top of the pile. 2 more things you should know as facts, not vibes. The turret has a true mechanical zero stop, so you can dial for a longer shot and then spin it back down and feel it stop dead at your baseline, in the dark, without looking. The elevation dial is exposed, so you can grab it fast when you do need it. The windage is capped, so you cannot knock it out of true bumping through brush, or shoving the rifle into a scabbard. And the parallax adjusts on a side dial that focuses all the way down to 25 yards. At 4 power, you get a field of view around 25 feet at 100 yards, wide enough to find a moving animal fast, and even wound all the way up the 50mm objective keeps a usable image as the light dies. And on the spec sheet from NightForce themselves, this model, the 4-14x50, is a first focal plane scope. That matters because some people online will tell you a first focal plane reticle is wrong for hunting. Here is the honest version of that argument. First focal plane means the reticle grows and shrinks with the magnification, so your holdover marks stay true at every single power setting, not just one. The trade-off people complain about is that the reticle can look thin at low power and thick at max power. On a 4-14, that is a mild trade-off, not the problem you get on an extreme long-range scope. For a hunter, having true holds at any magnification is a feature, not a curse. Now, the part I will not hide from you, because honesty is the only thing this channel has to sell. This scope is heavy. It is close to 30 ounces, and that is the heaviest scope on this entire list. If you hunt the backcountry, if you are counting every ounce climbing a mountain for elk, this is not your scope, and along the way, up this list, I pointed you to lighter ones that will treat your shoulders better. The weight is the price you pay for the beefed-up internals that let it survive the abuse. At roughly $1,290, it is not cheap either. But what you are buying is the answer to the only question that matters, in writing, backed by data. It holds. That is why it is number 1. That is the whole list. So let me give you the payoff I promised, the part that decides what you should buy. If you want the question answered and closed, proven durability with data behind it, and you do not care about weight or price, it is the NightForce or the Trijicon, full stop. Those two have the receipts. If you want the best value that passed a real drop test, it is the Maven at $1,200, and it is not close, as long as the direct sales model does not scare you off. If you're hunting lives and dies in the last 10 minutes of light, and you are the careful type who protects your gear, the Zeiss Conquest 5.4 in that 56mm at $600 to $800 on the street is the glass steel of the group, with the plain caveat that its durability is unproven. And if you want light, simple, and cheap, and you hunt inside 300 yards, the little Leupolds will very likely do everything you ask, as long as you go in with your eyes open about what has and has not been tested. And if you are the guy about to tell me none of this matters because you only take short shots, you are the person I ranked this for. A close shot has a small margin, and a scope that quietly walked off 0 turns an easy 40-yard chip shot into a wounded animal and a long night of tracking. The closer and simpler your hunting is, the less you can afford a lie in the glass. One more thing, honestly, while it will save you money. Most hunters buy far more magnification than they will ever use. On a deer or a hog inside 200 yards, you are taking the shot at 4 power, maybe 6, not 14. That giant zoom range printed on the box is mostly there to sell the box. And a lot of the time, the extra top end is just more glass to haul and more image shake to fight when your heart is pounding. Do not let a big top number talk you out of a lighter, simpler, tougher scope that stops at 10 or 12 power. The animal does not care what your maximum magnification is. It cares whether the bullet lands where the crosshair was sitting. Here is where the premium actually stops making sense. Above about $1,200, you are usually paying for glass and for a name, not for more proof that it holds zero, because past a certain point, the tested scopes have already maxed out that one job. Beautiful glass is worth paying for if you hunt the edges of light. It is not worth paying for if what you thought you were buying was toughness, because toughness and glass are priced on completely different shelves, and nobody tells you where one ends and the other begins. A scope has one job: to hold the line you gave it. Everything else on the box is a feature, and features are easy to sell in a bright store on a calm afternoon. The zero is the only thing that has to survive the cold morning, the long pack, the bad fall, and the one shot that is not going to wait for you. Buy the one that has been proven to hold it, or at the very least, by knowing which is which. Because when the light is gone, and the animal is standing there and your hands are cold, the scope is either telling you the truth or it is lying to you, and you will not know which until the shot is already gone.